Good morning. This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene. And today we're talking about the fantasy trip, right?
The fantasy trip, yes. Old RPG of sorts.
Yes.
So how did you come up? Well, we
were playing the game. Hello.
Right. So this is a game that's been around for a long time. Has a weird history, kind of. It was invented or written by Steve Jackson of Steve Jackson Games. This is before he made his own company called Steve Jackson Games. I don't know if there's an ego thing about there. But anyway, so...
It's easier to remember.
That's true. You just got to remember what your name is. So he wrote this set of rules. He had seen and played Dungeons and Dragons, but he thought it was too complicated and didn't like the idea of random character ability generations or attribute generation. And so he came up with his own ideas. He worked for this company called Metagaming Concepts, I believe was the name of the company. Anyway, so he worked for them. He wrote the game, and then they produced it. They
published it,
right? And back then, it was kind of a burgeoning RPG scene, right? Because very few games were being made. You know, this is the early 80s, I believe, 1980, 81, 82, 83 is when they published it. So this is pretty early on in the whole RPG world, even though D&D had been out for at least 6 years since it came out in 74. So it was getting popular. So there was other companies coming out with other games. And he came out with this game called A Fantasy Trip Melee and A Fantasy Trip Wizard.
Did they both come out at the same time, or was the Melee first and then the Wizard?
That's how I remember it. That Melee came out first and then Wizard, but I don't know, not for sure. I think they came out pretty close, one after another. If they weren't put out together at the same time, they were put up pretty close. And Metagaming Company put out these little micro games. They were really into small games where you could put them in a Ziploc bag about the size of half a folded sheet of paper. And I think the first one that Steve Jackson came up with was called Ogre, which was a little chit game that you moved your chits on a board, and there were like a hover tanks kind of thing battle. That was Ogre. The company did the same thing with Melee. It was a real short game. I think it was 14 pages for Melee, and I think Wizard had a bunch of more pages because they added magic to the system. So what is Melee, right? So I think I always envisioned it as a gladiatorial system game. It's based on hexes, right? You have your little chit for your man. Of course, later on you could have groups of men fighting each other, but it usually was man to man. It was an arena, and you built your man and gave him weapons according to how many points you wanted to spend or what the point limit, kind of like miniatures, right? And in a sense that you had so many points to spend on your character, and then you did battle with each other. And then Steve Jackson added some RPG elements and stuff like that, and that was the way it was published. But I guess Steve Jackson got into it with the publisher, the person who owned the company, that he wanted it to be put out at the same time, like in one book. And the publisher goes, no, it's too complicated. I think that was the word he used. And so it bugged Steve Jackson so much that he quit over that and went off.
Which caused problems for his fantasy trip.
Yes. Well, so he left the company, right? And a little bit later, he started Steve Jackson Games. But the problem is that this company owns the rights to A Fantasy Trip. The fantasy trip. Anyway, so they came out with it. It was well received, I think. What's even more important is that my friend Mike was really attached to it, right? He found it, bought it, obviously, and was always...
Did he buy it in the 80s?
Oh, yeah. You're talking, we're in high school.
Okay. Just checking.
And he convinced my brother Felipe to play. And so they would play man-to-man, these battles. And I was like, well, why are you doing that? Let's just play D&D. I was a staunch advocate of D&D at the time, AD&D at this point. So he really liked it, and he was always bringing it up. We should try playing it. And then they came out with Advanced Melee or something like that, which gave you more details about it in a role-playing game, things that you would want to be able to run it as a role-playing game instead of just this skirmish battle game. And like I said, he was always pushing for it. Sadly, it mainly fell on deaf ears. I think the only person that played with him was Felipe. He might have got one of his brothers to play with him, but that was when I wasn't there.
So I'm not a real big advocate of chit games where you have little tiny pieces of paper and squares.
Well, because it's so ingrained that it's like a battle game, right? It's like I can't think of, like a miniature game kind of, because you have facing and the hexes where you can attack.
You and Sip used to play some game with a bunch of chits.
Well, that was Panzer Blitz, and that was a weird. We played the heck out of Panzer Blitz for like almost a year, where we just kept playing, and then we just stopped playing. So it was interesting.
But it always reminds me just of like where generals are looking at a table with where all the troops are, and there they go.
Right. Well, I think it mimics kind of a war game, right? Yeah. That's kind of what it does. Some interesting points about the fantasy trip, that and unlike D&D where you roll randomly for attributes, and damn it, sometimes you get a 3 and you're stuck with a 3 intelligence or something. It is a point by system, so you get so many points to build your character. You can up and down those points depending on how powerful you want the characters to be. They suggest, what do they suggest?
24 or 32.
24 or 32. So that gives you, if 24 gives you 8 and everything. Oh, an 8. Okay.
An 8 is average, right?
8 is average. Oh, and there's only 3 attributes, right? There's intelligence. No, not even intelligence. There's strength.
Intellect.
Strength, dexterity, and IQ.
Intellect.
Right. But that one didn't come out to Wizard. So when you first bought Melee, it was only strength and dexterity because it was all about combat. And intellect only really comes into play when you want to throw spells, or not intellect, but IQ. And then later on, when they wanted to make it into a more role-playing game, they added skills and stuff based on your dexterity, strength, or IQ. I kind of like the idea of point by system, because then you get the character that you kind of want.
Okay, stop you right there.
Okay.
Point by is fine. I don't care.
Oh.
But when I was researching it, they were saying that I kept all on Reddit. People are going, "This is just a GURPS light," and I'm like, "Oh." So I had to ask, what does that mean? Because I know what GURPS is, but I'm all, why do they say it's a GURPS light? And Saul goes, well, because Steve Jackson did both of them.
Right. Steve Jackson, same guy. Later on, he made his own company, and he couldn't work or expand and call it Melee anymore because
for fantasy,
he didn't own the rights anymore, or he never owned the rights.
What does GURPS stand for again?
A stupid game.
Stupid name, you mean, not game.
Stupid name. Well, it was a joke name, right? It was called, what was it called? Like something like General Universal.
Yes.
Role-playing system.
Yeah.
So that's
generic.
Generic, that's the word, not general. Generic Universal Role-Playing System.
Yes.
GURPS. And
which Mike loves. And now...
Well, you know why. He loves
now
Melee.
I know why. I didn't know he loved Melee before.
Yeah, so they call it GURPS Light because it really is a precursor to GURPS, because GURPS uses the same 3 attributes.
Unfortunately...
And 3 6-sided dice.
Unfortunately, a lot of people on Reddit are like, "Let's GURPS Light," thinking and saying like GURPS came first, and
no.
This is. I know. I'm telling you that's what people are confused by that.
Yeah, I can understand that, and there is a GURPS Lite, free PDF out there, and I actually seen the booklet. I think I own it, or I somehow got it. It's for people who don't want to get into these real heavy books. They have a GURPS Lite system that takes a lot of the. It's more like a pamphlet.
I remember you got that. They're little books.
Yeah, no, it's a pamphlet. It's like a. I don't know what you call it. But anyway, so they put that out. It's like a 20-page PDF. And back then, this came out a long time ago when PDFs weren't so popular. So they put out a pamphlet that had it, and they were literally giving it out for free, or for like $1 you could buy it. Anyways, that was GURPS. But so this is like really like a proto GURPS, right? This is like Steve Jackson wanting to make a game, and he came up with these ideas, and he's 3 6-sided dice is the game mechanic. You roll under, right?
Yes, you have to roll under
the target number. And I think it's pretty interesting. Another thing he changed.
But sometimes as if you have detriments to your roll, you have to add a dice. So instead of 3, you roll 4 or 5.
Correct. That makes it harder.
And if
right?
if you have
like an advantage or
advantages, then you roll 1 less dice. So
right.
it's a lot easier to make and you have to roll against your IQ or your dexterity. So if you have I think I have a 12 or 13 in my IQ. No, an 11 in my IQ and a 12 in my dexterity. So that's with 3 dice. Sometimes you'll make it, sometimes you won't. But if you have I have awareness, so that allows me to roll 1 less dice.
Right. So much easier.
So it makes
to roll.
it easier to have a success.
Right. Right. That's if you have a higher attribute, right? Like my attribute for dexterity is 10. So I have to roll on 3 6-sided dice. I have to roll under a 10 to
have a success.
To have a success in that, whatever I'm doing. There's attributes attached to every. Attributes. There's skills attached to every attribute. So it's pretty easy. That's not very complicated. To me, it's very different than D&D, where you add all these pluses and minuses to your roll. Well, not anymore. You just have advantage or disadvantage, and then you roll D20. What I like, and I only in the last few years, I've been looking at people have been telling me, and people have been discussing about what is it, the bell curve of dice rolls, right? There's a chart somewhere that tells you, depending on how many dice you roll and what kind of dice you roll, you have this average. And in D&D, the average is from 1 to 20. It's just, there's no bell curve. It's very static, I guess you would say. Where 3 6-sided dice, you have an average, right? If you roll 3 6-sided dice, you're going to have around 11. Like a 9 to 12. That's the most likely numbers that come up. So, it makes sense to use the 3 6-sided dice because of that bell curve. And then adding the subtracting dice really, it makes more sense to me, and it's easier for me to get a handle on the idea of probability.
I think that if you're rolling a 20-sided dice, there is still going to be a probability of what you can roll, right? Like if you're rolling it 100 times, you're going to roll certain things, or it's going to come up differently. I know when I roll it, you get a lot of ones. So
that's anecdotal evidence in the scientific community. So that's absolutely not true. If you roll a D20, it's going to be sporadic. You're going to get all across the range.
Then why do people have dice jails for their D20s?
Because they're very superstitious people. And so there's going to be, you're right, there's going to be some
I'm just going to tell you
anomalies.
right now, when you're rolling a dice pool and it's all D6s, it's really hard to get 5s and 6s sometimes.
Sometimes, yes.
And I know that is the average, right? If the average is
on 6-sided dice, the average is 3, right?
Right. I'm just saying
3 point something, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, you're right. So, but to me, I could see that bell curve, and I'm like, okay, so if you add a die, it makes it easy, much harder to roll under the attribute, and if you subtract the die, it makes it much easier. If you have like a 13 and you roll 2 dice, there's no way you're gonna make it over, though you can have plus and minuses on the actual die roll,
right. And the sometimes, like when we were playing, Mike kept saying you have to roll a 5 for your against your IQ, and I'm like going, 5? That's like a lot to be able to get.
That's a low
12,
number,
right? You got to roll all 1s or something. So
pretty close.
Not all 1s. I'm just
yes
exaggerating.
So I like the idea that Steve Jackson looked at armor at D&D and said, "Oh, that's ridiculous. Armor doesn't make you harder to hit. It should just take off damage," and that's what he did. Depending on how much armor or the type of armor you have, it takes so many hits away from the damage that you take.
But does the armor cause you to move less?
Of course, because it's bulkier.
The game that we're playing in, Tom is I don't know what he is.
He's basically like a knight.
He's like a knight, yeah, because he's got a bunch of chainmail armor.
Oh, he has a plate mail, I think.
Oh, plate mail.
Yeah.
So, so I'm like, oh, that's going to make you move a lot slower.
And he does.
And we were going up and down stairs in tunnels. I was like, And then later on, I found out he had a plate mail, and I'm like going, because Mike goes, you can only move 1 hex instead of 2.
Yes. Yeah. So exactly. So, it's a very simple idea that if you have this heavier armor, you're going to move slower. But at the same time, you're putting off that slowness for being able to not get hit. But also affects your dexterity, because that is what you use to roll to hit.
Well, that's why they want to send the tank guy with the armor, a lot of armor.
Well, he got
in
hit
front.
with like 6 points of damage and nothing happened to him.
I know. Whereas Felipe got hit with 13 points of damage and went down.
Well, I got hit with 13 points of damage, and luckily for my cloth armor, took off 1 point. It left me with 1 hit point left. Anyway,
Armor. You're talking about armor.
Steve Jackson basically didn't have the rights because he was working for this company, and then the company went under. Metagaming Concepts just went under. I think it didn't last very long. I don't know when it started, but by the mid 80s, it was gone. It was gone, right? It had not in bankruptcy, but he closed down shop. And Steve Jackson approached the guy, the owner, Howard somebody, and he said, "Can I have the rights to the fantasy trip?" And the guy goes, "Sure, give me $250,000." And $250,000 in $1985 is quite a bit of money, right?
It still is. Hello.
for an RPG that I don't even know what their sales were.
Just for the rights of the
Just
RPG,
for the rights.
Yeah.
That's nothing.
That he wrote the game and he doesn't get the rights.
He wrote. It went out of production. Obviously, the company, he didn't pay. He didn't get the rights. And Steve Jackson, and basically it was a dead game, right? Went out of print. And stayed that way until 2017, where in the U.S. code somewhere they added or has a law that if a writer, after 35 years of it not being published, the writer can reassert his rights to the intellectual property that he wrote. Which makes sense to me, right? But 35 years,
that's a long time.
That's a long time. And Steve Jackson, but I guess by this point, Steve Jackson Games does pretty well. For they come out with a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but he had to wait 35 years to get the rights back to his game.
Well, I think the same kind of thing happened with Ogre, right? Because Ogre came out, and then he got the rights to it and was able to put out that. It's this huge box.
I don't know. You don't have that box.
Oh, no, I didn't buy Ogre. It was ridiculously huge box that had all kinds of stuff. And remember, Ogre is a hover tank battle game, like hover tanks shooting each other. Well, you know what? So what makes Steve Jackson a lot of money? Munchkin. Munchkin makes.
Oh, that's a great game. The boys love that, especially when they were little.
Yes. So Munchkin allows Steve Jackson to have all these projects that he loves, but maybe doesn't do very well. What do you call it? Business wise, right? Like he says, Ogre was a pet project or a project of love, especially when you look at how huge that box is. It must have cost a ton of money to make, and I'm not sure he even broke even on coming out with that stuff. So he did the same thing for our fantasy trip. He started getting the rights back in 2017. He got them in 2018. He kickstarted and made over $450,000.
Which comes to my next point when I was reading about the fantasy trip. A bunch of people go, should I play the fantasy trip? Should I get the fantasy trip or whatever the new? There's
it's
like
a
fantasy trip
legacy
edition. Or isn't there another one?
No.
Okay,
so he came out with Melee and Wizard,
right?
And then they came out with Advanced Melee Into the Labyrinth or something like that.
That's that. Yeah. Well,
and then he came out with some what is it? An adventure called Keller's Cave or something like that. And then it went out of business.
Saw that these people on Reddit and the places I was looking, they're like, oh, this is an OSR game. And I'm like, I'm thinking in my head, it can't be an OSR game if it was made in the 80s. And then I was like, and that's what everybody said. Well, no, this isn't an OSR game because an OSR game means that you had to have changed stuff. Nothing's really been changed. It's the same game as it was back in the 80s.
Yes.
So it's not OSR, but it seems like OSR because they did the Kickstarter.
It's brand new, yeah.
And so it's brand new, but it's an old style. It is. So it's very confusing.
Because it's old.
Exactly. So I was like, oh, okay, try to wrap your head around that, people.
Well, exactly, because it does seem a little antiquated. If you have never heard of the Fantasy Trip and you're looking at this game and you're like, oh, wow, there's facing and you move by hexes and stuff. That seems really old style.
And that is very old style, okay? Hexes may not be old style. You use them in math all the time. But hexes...
Hex or grid combat.
Yeah, you're like, I love it, the movement. I'm listening. We're playing it with the Friday Night Nights. And they've been playing together for a lot of years. Since they were like young teenagers.
Since 1980, I think.
So I was telling Saul that I was watching or I was looking because we're on Zoom, right? And Felipe and Tom were like, they had these smiles on their faces when they started to go, okay, this is the movement and this is blah, blah, blah. And I'm like going, oh my goodness, this is going to be interesting to see how, because you guys were having so much fun with this.
Yeah, I understand.
What I find kind of crunchy system.
It is a little crunchy, right? But it's at the same time, it's simple. Right?
I understand, but it's like, but you have to go back and figure out all the rules, right? So for combat, everybody moves and then everybody attacks.
And then everybody fights, yeah.
So it's a very interesting,
yes.
it's a very interesting, it's not like
a sequence of combat.
Because there's initiative and there's turn order. And I'm like going, okay, just tell me when to go and what I'm doing.
Well, it is interesting. There is the idea that things happen at the same time. Everybody moves and everybody rolls to hit.
And whoever's leading the part or is in front of the party at the time rolls the turn order, which means whether you get to go first or the other people or the.
Yeah, I wasn't paying attention too much to that.
I was
I just want to know when I got to shoot.
See, that's what
yeah. Well, unfortunately for me, the guy with the crossbow got to fire first because his dex was higher, I believe.
Yes, that's another thing. So it seems a little crunchy to me, but that's okay.
Yeah, I agree. It is a crunchy system, right?
But it's very fun. I mean,
it's fun, but I think it's less complex than D&D 5th edition.
I guess so. I don't know with all the maybe. It's less complicated than Pathfinder.
Yes.
In Pathfinder, you got your steps, and if you get an attack of opportunity, and
they still have some of that stuff in D&D 5th edition. Not so much like the attacks of opportunity stuff, but they do have all these rules about disengage. I'm sure this game does too. You can disengage, but then you lose your next action. So that's like, well, what good is that? And then you can dodge, right?
But that's your whole turn.
Yeah, you don't get to do anything.
Well, and it's pretty deadly. That's the other thing that was very
yes, this
different
is very
than
old school. The idea that your characters aren't going to have a lot of hit points, right?
Not only a lot. They call it health, not hit points.
Okay, health.
And it's not only that, but it's that you don't regain. Like even if you get a magic potion given to you, you only get like 1 hit point back.
Right, it brings you back from death.
Yeah,
from dying.
That's it.
And it puts you at 1 hit point.
And then you have to recover. You only get a hit point every other day.
Every other day.
So, but that's health. I'm sorry, I said hit point, but I meant health.
Yes.
But my character only has 10 health points.
That's every other day if you're resting.
Yes, if you're walking,
doesn't count.
It doesn't count.
No, you really have to just be doing nothing. Along with the crunchiness, and for me, it's mixed with simplicity because it seems pretty basic, right? You roll 3 6-sided dice, add and subtract a die depending on how hard it is. Bada bing, bada boom. You got to roll under your stat, and I really like that because it makes it really easy. And the idea that it is crunchy and still has this ability to be simple or easy to pick up really appealed to me when we were playing because it kind of reminds me of GURPS, right? Because I've played GURPS and I slowly developed a liking of GURPS, right? Because GURPS, again, Mike was a big GURPS fan. And at one, this is years ago now, at one point I went to a flea market, gamer flea market at a con on Monday, like the end of the convention, and there was a guy selling all his GURP books. And I'm like, how much? I go, and I knew Mike was into it, so I'm like, how much are your books? He said $40. I'm like, I just went, no, I'm not going to pay that much. I mean, it was a lot of books. It was all the characters, it was like 6 or 7 books. I'm like, no, for Mike, no, sorry, Mike. Well, too much. For a game I wasn't sure we would ever play. So the guy goes, okay, 20. I'm like, no. And then I bought it for $10 because he really didn't want to take that pile of books away. And nobody was offering him any money, so I gave him $10. $10 for
Did you give them to Mike?
No, I kept them. Mike already has them.
Oh, I see.
Well, I don't know if he has all of them, but the books I got like 5 or 6 books, and Felipe goes, I swear to God, as I'm coming out with my booty of GURP books, he goes, you bought GURPS? He goes, why'd you do that? And I'm like, whoa. I go, well, Mike kind of kept saying he wants to play. He goes, friends don't let friends buy GURPS. Like, okay. You didn't catch me in time, my brother. So I was kind of against this whole fantasy trip as when I was young. I didn't want to play. I thought D&D did things that this game couldn't. But Mike was really, really into it. Fast forward in what? to 40 years. Fast forward 40 years. And he brings it up. I'm like, yeah, sure. And I wasn't really into it. I think the person who said yes was Sip.
Well, because he got choices. He goes, well, this one looks like the least
intrusive to learn. I know it was Felipe and Bay who were pushing for GURP for the fantasy trip, and they weren't even going to get to play. So I'm like, you guys should shut the hell up. Because I wasn't
we'll play that one.
I wasn't too excited about it because I'm like, I just remember the Malay and the hexes and the chits. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then Sip said, okay, I'll play that. And I'm like, I stopped pushing for something else because I was like not into it. But I'm glad I did. I'm glad I tried it.
Actually, it's a pretty fun game, and I'm not sure if it has anything to do with the system, but it has to do with the fact that you guys are so excited about it when you're playing.
I think it's different than D&D than what we're used to.
Well, it's kind of like Dragonbane, right? Difficult, and you have to be careful. It's a deadly system, or you guys always say it's a dark, gritty world kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Where if you get hit with a crossbow, you're going to get hurt. If you get...
Obviously, you get killed.
And it's harder to recover from your injuries. So, and in fact, one of the things Mike says, well, I put extra characters out just in case someone dies. I'm like, okay.
I've grown attached to my character.
The only
already.
people that I've ever been in games who've done that are people that run Call of Cthulhu. Morgan always has an extra character just in case.
Well, you have to. You have to in those games. And this one is equally deadly. It's just a change of really the change of genres, right? There is D&D and even Dragonbane is kind of heroic kind of games.
Dragonbane is very hard. You get hurt and killed easily though.
But usually you're able to fight after getting hit 2 or 3 times. And this one time and you can, well, obviously it can kill you, right? There's that. And the slow healing process makes it even more difficult because like we were down in this dungeon like thing and I go, we got 2 people who are hurt down to 1 hit point. We're moving real slow and we had a bunch of prisoners and we wanted to take a bunch of stuff and we couldn't. Logistically it was not possible. And it's what is it? It's the process, the thinking process after you go and do a mission or do a quest or whatever you want to go on your adventure. There's the surviving part of it. And then there's we hope we make it back to civilization or somewhere where it's safe because we're not going to recover quick enough. You're not going to take a potion and, you're not going to take a breather and go, short rest. Got all my hit points back. No, there's none of that. And it's prolonged and it's, and this is really gritty. I mean, you use that term, but they're trying to mimic being realistic, and there is that. There's the battle, and even though you win the battle, there is the consequences of some of your people are going to get hurt, and some of them are going to get really hurt badly.
Well, and I think that people who just play D&D 5th edition, that would be a shocking to them.
Yes.
But if you play Call of Cthulhu or other games, because like the One Ring, I mean, we were stuck in a place for 2 or 3 days because the horse got his foot hurt and we couldn't go anywhere.
Well, we could have, but then if we got caught, it would take longer for the horse to heal, and if we got caught where we had to run, the horse would not run. You have to leave behind the horse, and the guy whose horse that was like, I'm not leaving my horse behind. So
my horse is coming with me.
So I go, okay, so let's stay here.
Stay here for a couple of days.
And even though Orc Band is running around out here there in the wilderness. Yeah.
So it depends on the kind of game you play, right? If you're always playing a heroic game where you're used to your character having 200 hit points, well, most characters don't, but
even 100 hit points,
60 something hit points when you're 5th or 8th level or whatever. But if you're only going to ever have 10 health points, you're not going to be able.
Yeah, you don't get more health strictly based on the level.
Yeah,
your strength, your health is equal to your strength.
Well, you can only raise like your I'm not sure about attributes, but the skills that if you have like 300 or experience points or something.
Yeah, it's
because Mike was handing out experience points, and he's like, and then he goes, well, once you get to 300, you can raise that something 1, and I'm all. Okay.
What about an attribute? 1,000 is deployed.
Well, I can see why people say that this might be an OSR game.
Well, if you've never played it,
never played it, right?
you go,
But
oh, this seems really old style.
And I
No,
go-
it's just old.
I go, it's just old. There's old guys playing it, and it's old.
Well, so they, like I said, they kickstarted it. I think it obviously funded right away. And then in 2019, just a year later, Steve Jackson, not just he, but Steve Jackson Games put it out, a box legacy set. I think it's like $120.
Mike got that one, right?
I'm pretty sure he did.
Okay.
I have no clue. He's never mentioned it, but I'm pretty sure he's bought it.
Because I remember him talking about the melee and wizard.
Yes.
And that he had it.
Yes.
And him and Felipe would go to his house to play it.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's the old game that he had.
I don't know.
Or the new box. Well, how long ago was this?
I don't know. A while.
Oh, was it after 2019?
Yeah.
Oh, he might have gotten the new one then. He also, Mike, I hate to out him on this, but he also backed like GURPS Fantasy Dungeon or something like that. So Steve Jackson came out with a Kickstarter, and it was basically a GURPS dungeon crawling game. All the rules for dungeon crawling, it had all the monsters and stuff, and he came out with rules for that. And I'm positive Mike went in on that. I'm pretty sure we're safe since I don't think Kathy listens to our podcast. Or he's safe. And in turn, we're safe. So everybody's safe all around. But he really is, I don't want to say fanatic, but he is a fan of the GURPS system, Steve Jackson. And of course, if he likes GURPS, he's going to like the Fantasy Trip because it's the precursor to GURPS. I wanted to make sure that I talked about is that, yeah, we were having a good time. And even though the system's old and seems archaic and seems I'm not sure what it seems like other than old and archaic, but
it doesn't really seem old and archaic to me.
Well, yes, it does when you start moving and the hexes come out.
Well, but
and you're like, oh, I can move.
But we were playing Pathfinder, and so I got kind of used to you can move 2 squares, and if you pass the guy, he gets an attack of opportunity.
Right. Well, even D&D is based on squares.
Right. And so the hexes aren't that bad to me, except that the hexes we were looking at, I was told, weren't actual movement hexes. You would have to. They're like 3 hexes.
They're mega hexes.
They're mega hexes, and I was like, oh, okay. Just tell me how far I can go.
So a mega hex is 3 hexes. Regular hexes. Man-sized hexes. How's that?
And I don't think of that as archaic so much as because up until the pandemic, we were playing with the mat on the table, the battle mat with figures out.
Oh, yeah.
Because the boys liked it. We liked it. They really liked I want to say map quality, but that's only because we've been talking about maps a lot. They like the visualization of it,
right?
Physically,
right.
So I think that has a lot to do with, I guess you could call it old, but it's just the way that people visualize things, right?
Well, I say old because nowadays a lot of games are theater of the mind. Let's say games like Modifius, they use zones. So they don't even worry about how far things are. You're in the personal zone, you're in a medium zone, and the zones aren't even circles. They depend on how big the room is, or if there's any impediment. That would be a different. Like if, for example, if you're in a grocery store or any store, and there's a counter, that would probably end the zone because it would take a little bit of effort to get out of that zone to get on the other side of the counter. So you like your zone. It would be a circle if there was nothing in the way, but if there was any kind of barrier or wall, that zone would probably go along that wall. And then if you go past the wall or over that counter, that's a different zone. And so it's all about zones instead of this very
so hexes are easier. That's all I gotta say. Than a zone. I'm just telling you right now.
Well, again, you're not using miniatures in the.
That's fine, but if you tell me hexes or squares, I can get along with that because it makes sense to me. The zone, I'm going to need a map with
next
where
game I run in
is.
person, it'll be in zones.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate
that.
You. Yeah.
Just for you. So you can experience
So I think that if you see the fantasy trip, you should try it.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad that I don't see it like being run at conventions. I don't think I saw a single game at DungeonCon who was somebody who was running the fantasy trip. I think, like I said, it was very interesting. It was very fun to play, and what I found interesting was that it was very easy to pick up and learn. And I know any RPG out there, regardless of the rules, can really install role playing, but this is kind of like the idea of because people keep calling it OSR because it's a game about rulings instead of rules, right? But a lot of times Mike will say, "Oh yeah, just go ahead and do that. Don't worry about the rules." Or
what is it you want to do?
What is it that you want to do? How are you going to do it? Okay,
until we got to the door. And then he's like, "Who's standing in front of the door? Who's opening the door?" And I'm like going, "This isn't good." I'm thinking.
Well, that's where it took down two of our characters.
Yes,
right?
I know.
That damn door. It wasn't the door; it was the guy behind it. But so I appreciate Mike for having the patience with us with me, because he offered to run this game years ago. Well, 40 years ago. and it pleaded with us to play, and I was kind of a moron, and I was like, we're already playing D&D. Why do I
have to learn a new system?
Yeah. I was channeling Sip where he goes, I don't want to learn a new system. And even though Sip is that guy who doesn't want to learn a new system, he was perfectly happy. By the second session, we were...
It's not that he doesn't want to learn a new system, it's that he doesn't want to learn a new system that we're only going to play once.
Yes. So we played twice. So we had 2 sessions of it. And we left it open-ended so we can come back to this world. I think we're going to play my 5th edition game, which I've promised these guys I'm going to stick it out as long as they want to play to whatever level. So I hope to make it past 10th level. Me, the GM. I hope that we make it past 10th level. I think 20th level might be the next ceiling that I have, but hey, we'll see what happens with these characters and these players. Thanks, Mike, for running this game. Again, I think what a good lesson from this is that if a person a friend of yours, is asking you to play a certain game, give it a shot. Even if it crashes and burns, you make your friend happy. And heck, we had a hell of a time. We were dying laughing at some point.
They had a blast.
You were laughing there with us.
They made me laugh.
I mean, we were, and I didn't really notice that part where Jolene says that she saw us, we're on Zoom, and then we were just laughing and just having a good old time. How we were kids again, right? Basically is what you were saying. We were like teenagers again, just laughing, doing crazy stunts and panicking because 2 of our people were down. Dragging people away from the line of sight, and then like somebody was mad at you. Sip
Well, no, Sip when Mike was giving out experience points, Sip's all, "Well, you didn't do anything." I go, "Dude, I have 8 hit points, and I'm standing in front of the people that are hurt to make sure that if the guys get past you guys that actually have armor and a bow, that I will do something then. But more than that, I just wanted to let them have their little spotlights of doing their stuff, yeah, right? Because you guys were having so much fun. I was like, I don't need to open the door. All I have is a sword, and they have a bow, and I can't see them."
Anyway, it was a good time. I think, like I said,
it was a lot of fun.
Take a lesson from me and try something that you haven't tried.
I think it's funny that you're always saying that we need to try new things, and you didn't want to do this. I guess because it's not new.
Well, it was probably that feeling that I had when I was a teenager, right? I just went straight to that feeling that I was a teenager again, going, "Oh my God, Mike wants to play the fantasy trip melee." And then finally I was like, why am I putting up such a protest about, let's play? And you're right. I'm the one that wants to play all these RPGs. Jolene will attest to my
RPG stash
problem. Anyway.
So there you go. If you have a chance to play the fantasy trip, I would suggest you do it.
Yeah, check it out.
This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene.
You have a good day.